Hi, my name's Dean. Welcome to the ERS Hub podcast. Today I've got a very special guest, Deepak Farmah, who is the Head of Innovation at Coventry University. Deepak is playing a pivotal role in the electrification drive, and this has been backed by government funding. And he was the pioneer of how the model is going to help businesses and individuals create a strong identity in the UK in the rapidly growing world of electrification. Hi Deepak, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for joining me today. I gave you a little bit of an intro at the very beginning about a little bit about your background, but for the people watching the podcast, do you want to sort of explain a little bit about your background and what you're doing now for Coventry University?
Yeah, sure. At the moment, I'm working as the Head of Innovation for Coventry University's Enterprise and Innovation Organisation. And my primary role here is about supporting innovation activity for industry-led challenges and trying to support industry in gaining that resource that the university has to offer across its group. Additionally, the other way around is also about making sure that the research and the innovations that come through the university can also end up into the markets and the commercialization of those new research and innovations that come through. My main goal here is about being that sort of support between the two. For myself, currently I'm working on a major project, which is the Electric Revolution Skills Hub, and I am the primary lead for that, and supporting the development and launch and then obviously sustainability of that main hub as a new innovation for the electrification community, you could say.
You mentioned the Electric Revolution Skills Hub. Where did that come from? Is it a part of a bigger project?
Where did it come from? It's part of a huge initiative that's been supported through government and UKRI Innovate UK. And if you really want to know the history of it, the main thing to really focus on is looking at the details around driving the electric revolution initiative, a huge investment into the UK to support the industrialization of electrification, very much focused on design and development and research, right? And the Skills Hub really came about about a year or so after the initial launch of this DER program, mainly to focus on that, okay, we've got a country where we're investing in equipment, in facilities, but we really need people to drive that activity, that research, that innovation. And the ERS Hub really was something that was, in its early concept, developed to support or energize the skills space, to make sure that there are people or abundance of talent, right, that could be utilized or brought together or to really innovate that space. At the moment, we know that due to the fact that it's a growing and nascent market, that unfortunately you don't naturally have a huge amount of talent that naturally draws itself, because there's a whole awareness piece that needs to take place around the industry. So if you're moving a lot of the country in terms of its goal, in terms of its agenda around net zero carbon, all of that thing, right, to electrification as a solution to that, then you need people to drive the innovations and activities. If you want to build your next, electrification car, electrified car, infrastructure, rail, aerospace, all of the things that are going to be electrified in the future, well, you need people to do that. And the ERS Hub is designed as a platform to allow that space to grow. That was where it came from, really.
So the electric revolution is growing at some pace, isn't it, within industries in general? Are you saying that the skills gap is there a skills gap there, and is it falling behind? Do you find that there are a lot of mechanical type engineers and things like that where there's not enough electrical engineers to fill the gap? And is it just engineers? Is it also in design as well that we've got this gap?
I think that there are two parts to this, if you really want to dig into it. The UK is very much always been at the forefront of research and development, regardless of where that product line gets manufactured eventually, which, as we know, traditionally tends to go offshore. there's been a more and more focus, especially after Brexit and all of this sort of stuff, that we want to start building bigger supply chains and more in-house manufacturing. But also we want to make sure that we still take full advantage of our research development capabilities. So I think that over the last 5 years or so, with the agenda being pushed through government around electrification, it's clear to me, or clear to anyone, that electrification is the solution that everybody's looking to. Now, if you are going to be, spending if you look at the last 5 year statistics alone, the amount of businesses and SMEs and companies that have come online, or even startups that are trying to, build new product lines or innovations in this space, has grown significantly. Now, all of these businesses that have come online from between 2015 and 2023, at the moment, even if they're startups or small SMEs, still need lots of people to come in and still, one person's not going to sit there and develop a full product line. You need teams of people, innovating together, right, and stay together long enough to be able to allow an innovation to happen. And at the moment, we're seeing a huge gap forming there, right, of skills, because as more and more businesses are being pressed to, or funded, or developed to meet the needs of the new electrification landscape, all right, we need people in that landscape. Otherwise, it's going to be a big empty piece of land, right? So right now, we have a responsibility as a country, as education providers, as businesses, to support talent pools that are coming into this space. So this hub that we've put in place, this digital hub or this platform, is effectively something that's dedicated, right, with the right common language to support that initiative. It's focused on skills, and it's about making more and more people qualified with the right level of qualifications, and giving employers the right confidence, right, when they employ somebody, that they can do what they need them to do, right? And trying to remove this sort of mist around, you've done it before, can you do this? All these sort of different things that go on at the moment. Mechanical engineers that we have traditionally, or for many, 50 plus, how many years we've been doing it, there's lots of mechanical. And it's those skills we still need, right? We still need those, they're not redundant, right? Yeah. We need those skills. We just need another additional part to be added onto that, right? So that they can reskill, retrain, to modify their amazing skills that they have into an electrification field, right?
And they can become hybrids, right?
Hybrids, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's about, this hub is there to make them more valuable, right? Even more than they are already. It's about accelerating their learning. It's to give them clarity on, look, if I'm a mechanical engineer, or if I'm working in the mechanical fields, how do I get involved? How do I get involved with the future? And it's not just the future, it's their own future, because it's happening all around them, right? And they are, at the moment, there's a lot of confusion. Where do I go and get the right course? Or where do I go and get the right learning? Where do I find the job, that's going to pay for all of that, investment into myself, right? And that's what this hub does. It brings it all together into a space where you can really, understand what's my career paths, where am I going to go, where am I going to get the learning, how can I get involved, and how can I be more valuable to the UK's economic growth in this area?
When I spoke to Ven Chesterton from the Driving the Electric Revolution, he said the focus from their side was going all the way back to primary schools, where they were getting children to make electric motors and having little races with them and things.
Yes.
And that's quite good, obviously, for the skills gap of the future. But do you feel that ERS Hub is more for the now, more for the businesses and the people that have jobs right now, or do you go back a little bit further into academia?
I think that's a very good question. I think for us, it's about now. Every single business out there that you speak to that's in this field will tell you we need people yesterday, right? Therefore, we can't ignore that, right? And it's about the now, but with a massive responsibility to also make sure that the ERS Hub is supporting that early year intervention as well, right, into primary schools. And we have a responsibility as a hub to make sure we don't forget about the up and coming just because we're focused on the now. It is a joint up approach. The people of now that we support will become the role models of the future, of the people in the future, right? And we've got to make sure that that's happening. It's about making sure that the current workforce is diverse, inclusive. There's a huge part of that innovation. Me being very much my career in innovation, I know and I feel it and I see it every day that real innovation only takes place when you have a diverse bunch of people together, right, working on a problem collectively, right, from a different angle and a different perspective. Those are the true innovations that really come out and are successful. We need to make sure that those opportunities are being created in the UK for us to draw in a diverse crowd, be inclusive, right, and then build role models that will eventually become the role models of the younger generations. And that's really important to me. And the hub itself, it's about impact and then growing it. You can't take your eye off the ball in terms of the younger generation. It needs to be a plan that focuses on everything as an ecosystem.
It's quite nice broad objectives they are, around the skills shortage plus diversity and inclusion.
Absolutely.
Just changing the subject slightly, what is this body of knowledge I've heard about and why is it important?
Well, a couple of years ago when we started to really delve into this space, we started to really understand, our background is understanding how we develop skills in the nascent market. So we've done that in the digital space over the last 6 or 7 years. One thing that unified that space we knew, right, was a common framework, something that people could talk about and really understand, when somebody talks about safety, what does that mean? So if we talk about in the digital space, if we talk about cybersecurity and we talk about, pen testing, for example, the different levels of pen testing, people are very clear on that because there's a framework there, right, which sort of unifies everything. Whereas in this space, there was less of that, right? Very much almost non-existent, right? And we needed to make sure that when the hub did what it did, right, any sort of, whether you refer to skills, whether you refer to jobs, or whether you, in whichever context, that the two sides of both of those things, whether you're a course provider or a course taker, right, whether you're a job poster or someone who's looking for a job, are communicating in between with a common language. The body of knowledge effectively is a framework, right, to support and understand the levels at which people are working, right? Therefore, they can plan. If, for example, you know where you're starting from, you can plan where you want to go. So if you've got a framework that allows you to understand that, okay, let's just say, for example, in embedded systems or motor design or vibration control, right, in the electrification fields, I'm a complete novice. I've never done it before. I need to know where I'm going to start. But before I know where I'm going to start, I've got to be able to find it. I've got to be able to communicate what I'm looking for. And that's got to then be received on the other side to say, yes, we know what you're talking about. And it's just about having a common language. And that
common terminology, yeah.
That body of knowledge is what that is. If I'm writing a job description, that job description needs to have a very clear, what am I looking for as an employer? And that needs to be then reciprocated on the other side by the person looking for that job and saying, I understand exactly what you're looking for. If you're using multiple different languages, right, across multiple employers, right, they effectively all mean the same thing. It's very confusing for anybody trying to find their way into this career path, right? And it's not supporting the employers because they're spending thousands and thousands of pounds trying to do recruitment, and really they're not able to pin down what is it that we're trying to recruit, who is it that we're trying to recruit, and with what skills. That's where that gap sits. The body of knowledge is designed. It's the core value. It's the core framework underpinning the entire hub that is purpose-built to refer to a common language.
Do you think that's because the PEMD sectors or sector is it just an embryo of a sector? Does everyone within it know that it's a sector, and why is the body of knowledge not been done before?
Right. So the first thing is it's not a sector. The PEMD is not a sector. The PEMD, power electronics, drives and machines are disciplines, right? And they are areas of work. The sectors that it affects, right, are the automotive sector or the rail sector. We refer to them as sector and collectively as an industrial environment, robotics or energy production. Now, power electronics drives and machines, right, are fundamental, right, to the electrification space. You can't. They've been there in history. Whether most of the robots in the factory are driven by motors or electrification. It's just that it's become more and more abundant now. It's needed more and more because of the way that our powertrains are working now, or transport sector's working now. With regards to the actual need for it, right? If I went to somebody and said, PEMD, they don't even know what PEMD is, right? So how are we supposed to take responsibility as educators, for example, or training providers, if half of our students, or learners coming up, are electronics engineers, for example, do their degree in that field, right? It's broad enough that they can go out and find multiple jobs. Why come to something they have no idea even exists? So the awareness of that is important. I'm moving more and more away from just calling it PEMD because less and less people understand it, and the more important part here is to the overarching terminology, which people are getting more and more, which is electrification, effectively, and we've got a responsibility to communicate that out. Power electronics drives machines is not a sector, but it affects all the other sectors in the industrial space, and that's why we've got to try to get that out there in terms of the skill sets that we require in those fields, right, are cross-disciplinary. Right, you can, have somebody who's a power electronics specialist, right, move from sector to sector to sector, right. It's the disciplines behind, it's the underpinning knowledge that is required and the experience that they need to bring out in the forefront.
Talk to me about skills and training and how you envisage it working on the ERS hub.
Well, at the moment, if you look at how it's done now. In fact, it's not really done. I would say that it's more, how it's happening at the moment, right? Is that it's really, really confusing for an individual trying to find a course or something they're trying to undertake. More importantly, if they do find that course, it's hard to make sure it's the right course, because what really drives the fact that it's the right course is whether it's going to be useful once they finish it to the employer or the company that they're going to go work for with that qualification. Right now, if I want to find a course, I can go to so many different providers. Right, if I type in power electronics courses on the internet, I'm probably going to get quite a few courses. Right, I don't know which one's which. I don't know whether it's correct. I don't know whether the learning outcomes are going to be right or not. We're just going by what we see on Google, effectively. What we need, what the hub does, it takes all of that chaos, right, that is currently in the space, and draws it into a singular entity and says, this is what's going on, right? This is where it is in the country. This is what you need to do, right, to go and do the course, whether it's an online course, whether it's a blended course, whether it's a physical location you need to go and do assessments in, right? And says, once you've done that, right, you can then receive a digital badge, right, which is endorsed by multiple different organizations. It will also be supported by the ERS hub, and therefore you can then recognize that as something, as a competency that you've achieved, right? And then you've got additionally the fact that you can then share those profiles. So if you're an employee, somebody looking for a job, then you can say, right, this is my qualifications. This is what I've received from those qualifications, and these are all my digital badges that show what competencies I'm good at, right, or what I'm capable of. And therefore, the hub will then give reassurance to the employers and say, this person is pretty well, it's the best possible indication that when I employ this person, they're going to come into my organization and be effective, right?
So all the training courses are vetted before they go on to the ERS hub. Is that right? Just so that they can be part of these badges or standards, if you like.
Yes, to be part of the badging system, they are vetted, right? They will be looked at and and to make sure they're in line with the body of knowledge. So if the body of knowledge is saying that this learning is at level 2 in like I said, motor design, right? Therefore, it will be badged as that. It will be underneath. That's why the body of knowledge is so important, because you're referring to the framework. If you've got courses in the country, we absolutely envisage that there's a transition period when all the digital badges become available. Probably I would say that between 0 to 1 year, you're probably going to be looking at a transition period where you're looking at all the frameworks and matching everything. So I'm not saying that it's going to happen on day one. What I'm saying is that there's a bit of work to be done to do that alignment piece. The most important part here is that on day one, when you come to this hub, you'll be able to see all the provision that's available, right? Currently that's been recorded on the hub, and there are probably in the region of 400 or 500 different learning interventions that we'll be having live on the system. You'll be able to, training providers will be able to come and put more on there, right? But as time goes on and the body of knowledge starts to go into version 1, version 2, version 3, and it becomes more and more accepted, I would expect that more and more institutions will be aligning to it, therefore building digital badges that support that, that narrative around, this person can do this. And effectively, this all comes from research that we did, where employers constantly told us that they were employing people and having to fire them after 6 months because they can't do what they were looking to. They simply wasn't able to deliver what they were supposed to be doing in their organization. And I think that this is about making sure that innovation isn't a barrier in any organization, and more importantly, that SMEs can afford it, mid-sized organization can afford it, startups can afford, and the big company can afford. Around talent acquisition should not be a barrier. It should be about affordable talent, right, to be able to support innovation.
So as an individual, I could come as an individual onto the ERS hub and look for courses for my personal use, but can businesses kind of send teams and do like team training?
The provisions are completely open as if they are now. What we're doing is the hub isn't creating courses, right? The hub doesn't deliver the courses. What it does, it curates everything that's available and puts it in one place and says, this is all the stuff that's in the country right now, and our smart tools are going to help you navigate that. Right? Now, if an organization wants to come and find a learning for 300 of their staff members or 220 even, they'll be able to find that, right? These are just natural formats that are already happening anyway. If, for example, you went right now to, Newcastle University and said, I want to, upskill 30 of my staff, right? They'd put an offer on the table for you. They would have a course and they'd do it. The difference is that not everything is easy to find, right? Every single university, every single training provider, every single college, school, every single business advertising their products individually. Mm-hmm. Right? There's no collective area where they can go and say, right, where's my choices? Yeah. Right? What's my whole choice around the country? What can I do and where can I do it? Right? And that's what the hub does. It brings that all together, right, into that singular space and says, if I'm going to search, Cardiff, right, and I want to take 10 of my staff onto that course, right, and I want to do it in a 5-day CPD, right, and I want it to be done in a blended format, some of it online and some of it physically assessed. Yeah. All of that will be at the touch of a button.
So these badges and standards, it sounds to me like they're almost kind of going to be this CPD type points for those industries that we spoke about. Is that right, or? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, CPDs have always been there. It's just about recognizing those CPDs into a singular framework. The abundance of employers that we've spoken to in our research and validation, has been all about, give us the people that can do the things that we want them to do. It's great if it comes with, credits or if it comes with recognized qualifications, but I'm more interested in what that person can do for me, right? And how they can actually, accelerate my agenda. And I think that the landscape has really shifted over the last 5 years. We've seen it in the software sector, right? It's about, half of them, it's really strange to say, but the fact is that half of the most valuable things that most software developers are learning is outside the classroom, right? And the reason being is because it's about those hidden talents that people want around sitting there in the evening, doing something completely out there in software development. And the fact is that builds a skill set that isn't recognized necessarily through, credits and, sort of your other form of learning. And we as organizations or education providers need to become better at recognizing that. Right, and that's what this digital badging system does. It effectively says, okay, you've got a degree, but guess what? We're going to recognize all the competencies that you've got, that you've learned from various different parts of, a different organization, or done it in your own time, or whatever it may be. We're going to couple them together, they can complement each other, and now you can take that entire package to that employer and say, this is all the things I can do. Right, and that's what that employer needs. That employer needs that confidence. A small SME can't afford to keep spending multiple hundreds of thousands of pounds on recruitment, employing someone, firing them, employing someone, firing them. By the time the industry's moved on, the innovation is lost, right? And it just doesn't work. We're not supporting our SMEs if we can't recognize people's talents in multiple different ways.
Let's say that I could play two parts here. I could either be a potential employee that's probably gone from a mechanical engineer job to an electrical engineer or something similar. I could also be an owner of a business that is in the electrification field. How does either party get value from the ERS hub? If I'm looking for a job, or as an employee, as an employer, I'm looking for candidates and potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put this all into words because there is so much value here, and I'm going to try and do it as best as I can. Yes, there is the courses that you can go and find to give you clarity. There's the body of knowledge. There's the jobs that are posted in context of what people are actually looking for, right? And then there's going to be lots of people looking for those jobs that they can come find them. These are some of the more high-level stuff. But what it doesn't always come through on the hub is that the hub has multiple other angles that are coming, multiple other features, right, that are going to be there. We've got self-assessment tools that will be on there to understand exactly what your current position is as an individual and as an organization in the field that you are trying to grow into. We're going to have, coaching and mentoring section, which is going to support completely out of the narrative of electrification, but just support people on the softer side of how do you transition from one skill to another? What sort of goals you can set? What can you do to really, help yourself transition into a different career path, right? We're going to have, horizon scanning activity, right? That is going to be sitting there. Now, the reason I say horizon scanning is that the hub being a national hub and designed for the UK will eventually be looking at all of the data that's coming through and using that data to educate the industry. We'll be publishing multiple different horizon scanning activity, right, that will capture all the things that we're seeing, right, in the country in terms of where people are, what employers are doing, where they can, what parts need more intervention, what needs more investment, right? And all of these things will be all energized on this platform. So I think that although we focus on, skills, jobs, and community as our core three primary areas, to make that happen, there are a lot of other things in between, a lot of verticals in between that need to be also supporting that higher level agenda. And the hub does that. So all those smaller features, which, like I said, I can list off, the value that the people will get from that. As an employer, I want to be able to come there and think, what's the next 5 years look like? What's going to happen in 2 years? Right, where am I going? How much should I be, paying somebody of this level, right? Where can my HR team go and find these people, right? There's going to be guidance there, and when we see gaps, we'll be supporting, training providers with curating new courses, right? This course is missing in this field. You guys could, build something here, but don't do it on your own, right? Do it with an employer, right? That way, it's industry standard. We'll help to curate that space and bring the two together. We'll build the course ourselves, but we will definitely take responsibility for connecting a training provider to an employer so they can build the right courses, right, for the right sectors and industries.
So what can businesses do to support the hub, and also what can myself as an individual in the mechanical engineering sector do to support the hub? How do we get involved from here on in?
I think that for myself, it's the main ask here really is about businesses trying to, use the hub, right, and get involved as, making sure that the body of knowledge is being done properly. So we've got a massive amount of assemblies that are going in place, different ways of connecting with the hub, and they should be connecting. The industry has a chance now to really influence, the frameworks and the body of knowledge and how the hub works. This is an inclusive hub, therefore it's being done for that community, and therefore they should have a say in that community. So I want them to be involved. I want them to contact my business development people, right? I want them to, contact our info box, tell them, everyone's gonna have a different need. Don't be afraid to put that need in there. What is it that you want the hub to be for you, right, as an employer, right, or a business? What does it mean for a training provider? Let us know, because the more you tell us, the more we'll be able to pivot the hub towards meeting your needs.
Sounds great. And we've got a conference coming up. I'm just going to put a banner on the bottom just to show where it is. It's on the 27th and the 28th of March 2023, and it's at the ICC in Birmingham. Over the 2 days, we've got lots of speakers, and it's going to be a release of the ERS hub, isn't it? Do you want to sort of explain a little bit more, launch party?
Yeah, you could say. I mean, there's a lot of work that's gone into this over the last couple of years. And finally, we get to the 27th of March, where we will be launching this in a public setting. But it's actually part of a bigger conference. Our Electric Revolution Skills Conference, which will run annually, right, will be a bringing together of people with a similar mindset, looking to support the agenda around skills and talent. And we will be having lots of guest speakers, coming there, supporting the main narrative around skills. Lots of workshops, lots of exhibits, lots of things that we can showcase, right, around what's already been happening. There's a lot of people working on a lot of different things in the sector, in their own sectors around this sort of space, and we want to showcase that. So the conference will be an annual thing. This one, the first one, which will be on the 27th, is a big one because it's when we're going to launch the actual hub itself. We will be doing it a live launch, and I think that anyone that can be part of that, and come together and join us, I would welcome. And I think it would be a really good thing to support this intervention that we're doing for that community.
I'll put the links down to the conference and also all the rest of the social media channels that you can keep up to date with everything that's happening. Like Deepak said, it's not a one-off thing; it's an ongoing thing, year on year, and this thing's going to sort of build. So it would be great if you were all part of it. Deepak, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for spending time with me. I'm sure everybody watching this podcast will love what you say and hopefully join the electric revolution with yourself.
Thank you, Dean, for helping me get the message out there. And I think it's a really important thing.